Good evening, and welcome to the Thursday night version of Ridgecrest Talk. Along with Robert Eierman, I'm Al Huey, and here on the Thursday night version of Ridgecrest Talk, we are going to strive to be hard on the issues, but soft on the people. That's our new logo, I guess. But tonight, we have the pleasure of having with us Mr. Andy Anderson. He is a member of the Measure L committee. That's where our sales tax increase is supposed to be going to streets and public safety. And I've heard, and I suspect you too, Robert, have heard a lot of concern from the general public out there wanting to know where this money is actually going. They have the perception that the public safety is getting the biggest cut of the pie.
And that's an accurate perception. Up till now, that has been what's happened. In the first year, I think they got like 75%. I've heard, but the figures that I see, although I've heard 50-50 this year, I've looked at the figures and I see 60-40. So 60% to public safety. Yes.
So we're going to talk with Andy. We want to thank you for being our guest here tonight and coming out and sharing the information that you have. And you were originally appointed to the committee, right?
Yes, my original appointment came from Councilman Morgan.
Okay.
And then was renewed at the end, because it was only a one-year appointment. At the end of the first year, it was renewed for 4 years by Councilman Acton.
Okay. And we just had reappointments to the committee. We had, was it Golden?
Gould.
Gould is
his last name.
Mr.
Yes.
Gould and Mr. Carter.
Mr. Carter, yes.
People might recognize that name. Ron Carter was a former mayor of the city and council member for many years. And there was a lot of discussion,
yes,
shall I say.
Lively discussion.
Yeah, during the appointment process 2 weeks ago for Mr. Carter. And then we heard rumor about a proposal that was supposed to have come from him. That's the way I heard it.
That's the way I heard it also.
That he was wanting the Measure L committee to put an effort towards promoting Measure L so that it would be passed here again in 2 years when it goes back on the ballot, because it is a sunset. It's only good for 5 years.
Right. Passed in 12. It has to be renewed no later than June of 17.
Right. So when myself and Robert heard that, we were kind of amazed. It kind of went to the some of the charges that were put forth during the appointment process at that council meeting regarding Mr. Carter and how he would perform. But we had a phone con with Mr. Anderson, and he corrected that.
Yes, in fact, that, if you want to call it a proposal, it was just a comment that I made at the end of our last Measure L meeting. When
so it
we
wasn't
had,
an agenda item?
No, it wasn't an agenda item at all. It was only put out in committee members' comments, and my comment was that we needed to get information out to the public if the council had any hopes of ever getting this particular Measure L, or whatever they're going to call it in 17, redone. And yeah, I think Mr. Carter did in fact say yes, he agreed with that, but it wasn't any proposal, or no, it wasn't his initiative at all.
Okay.
And I still stand by that. I think that if we don't get some information out to the public, and we don't correct some of these misinterpretations and misnomers, that we are going to have a very difficult time.
Right.
reasserting Measure L, and I'm sorry to say that I am not sure that we want to face the kind of crisis that that's going to cause in our city's budget.
Instead of having some streets repaired, we will have 0 streets.
Yeah, there will be no street repair at all, and we have spent some money and we have repaired some streets. I have a list here of streets which Measure L money accompanied. We'll talk about those in a few minutes, I suppose.
Yes, we will.
Yes, there was some discussion about Mr. Carter's appointment, but it wasn't against Mr. Carter. No time did we care about whether Mr. Carter was. My objection and other people's objection to the nomination process was the fact that we felt that once again the City Council was going to shoot themselves in the foot by reinforcing
lack of transparency,
and the good old boy network.
Right.
Actually, Ron Carter does bring a tremendous amount of knowledge about city budget to the Measure L committee.
Right. Well, I think Robert and I are in agreement that we want to look into this further down the road. You're the first individual we've had on regarding it, but we want to get more information and try to disseminate to the public what's actually happening with those tax dollars to where they can understand it. We got documentation here today from the city, but it's not that easy to understand, and it doesn't really show you where the dollars are going. So
and what's important, and I think Andy agrees, is what's important is the city's task is to convey to the citizenry what's being done with Measure L. Because if they, the committee can't really do it themselves, they're just a Citizens Oversight Committee.
Right.
So the city's got to be doing that and putting it in language and figures that the public can understand, so that they have a reason to vote for it again.
Right. Well, when we come back, we're going to get into talking about some of the money that's been spent on streets thus far. And it's not just streets that you're going to see work done on. When we talk about streets, there's other expenses. So join us when we come back here on Ridgecrest Talk Thursday night, and we'll get into more Measure L.
And welcome back to the Ridgecrest Talk, the Thursday evening edition. I'm Robert Eierman, along with Al Huey, and our guest is Mr. Andy Anderson. And remember, on Ridgecrest Talk Thursday evening edition, we're hard on the issues, but soft on the people.
So, before we went to break, you were talking about some of the roads that Measure L money had been spent on. So give us, if you could please, up to today, what streets Measure L money was contributed to.
Okay. To start off with, a lot of people have come up to me and said, gee, well, I'm glad to see Ridgecrest Boulevard done, something done with Measure L. And that's some misinformation. Measure L paid for nothing in the reconstruction of Ridgecrest Boulevard. That was all done. It took the city a long time to get that all together, but it's all been done with TAB funds, tax allotted bonds, and gas tax money, and grants. Now, in projects that were done this year with Measure L money, contributing is, in some cases, a significant part, the ones that have been completed, excuse me, got to put my eyes on here so I can read. Okay, the street improvements on Las Flores from Norma to Downs, on Downs Street from Bataan to Bowman, Drummond from Downs to Norma, Dolphin from Mayhound to Downs, and Norma Street from Las Flores to Drummond got a cap seal. These are all repairs that have been completed using Measure L money as the majority funding for those programs.
Yeah, and let's make that clear. We're not saying that Measure L funded the whole project for that street, but in part, Measure L contributed to it. We want to get down the road later, another show, try to get some percentages, but this is the best we can do for right now.
Okay, also I forgot to. Gold Canyon Road from Benson to Hayden, and Downs from China Lake Boulevard to Dolphin got a cap seal. Okay. Now, for the upcoming rest of the what is called the paving season. Now, let me explain that a little bit. There, by state law, is a paving season. There is a time during the year in which you can do road construction and repair. All of your road construction and repair must be done in that season, okay? And it goes, I think, from May to November.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but I think it's May to November. And we have 7 microsurfacing jobs that are going to be done, micropave jobs that are going to be done between now, the fall, and November. On Downs Street from Ridgecrest Boulevard to Las Flores Avenue. On Downs Street from Las Flores Avenue to Drummond Avenue. Las Flores Avenue from Downs Avenue to Norma Avenue. Upjohn Avenue from Mahan Avenue to Downs Avenue. And Upjohn Avenue from Mahan Avenue to Guam. Downs Avenue from Bowman Avenue to Upjohn Avenue, and Dolphin Avenue from Mahan Avenue to Downs Avenue. Those are all going to be microsurfaced, which is putting a layer of asphalt, grinding up the top layer of the asphalt that is presently there, smoothing it all out, and then laying another layer of asphalt on it. It's called a microsurface. It's good for about 10 years, and it costs much, much less money than doing a complete reconstruction.
Now, I was looking to hear you say something about Sunland, because Sunland used to be a terrible road, and it's now a beautiful highway by comparison.
Well, Sunland was partially done by Measure L money. What happened with Sunland was that one end of Sunland was paid for by TAB funds, and all the engineering was done. On the other end of Sunland, there was also engineering done, but nobody ever did the middle. So the Measure L paid for the engineering project that connected the two, and completely paid for the engineering and the resurfacing and construction of Sunland all the way out to Bowman, from Upjohn all the way out to Bowman.
The new,
beautiful new road.
Right.
It's now all been striped and it's open for traffic. It's much better. Of course, almost anything would have been much better on Sunland between Ridgecrest Boulevard and Upjohn.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst streets in the city. Not that there aren't some more, but we are making good progress with the money that you have appropriated for Measure L.
We're seeing more road work, street work in this town than I've seen in the entire time I've lived here.
That's correct, yes.
One that you didn't mention I have here that's coming up the 29th of September is going to be South China Lake Boulevard from Upjohn to Bowman.
Oh,
that begins
Yeah, it is, and I
okay.
had that somewhere. Where did I
and that's going to be fully funded by Measure L.
Yes, it is. I thought I had that, but I don't seem to have it on this
So what people need to understand, and we want to get this information out where it's a little clearer down the road, when they say Measure L money contributed to the street repair, it could be that Measure L paid for the planning of it and nothing else. Or Measure L was a matching fund to get a grant which brought in more money to be able to fix a street. And right now that information is not easily obtainable. So we're going to try to work with the city down the road and see if we can't get some simple explanation so that people can understand and see that their tax dollars are actually going to some streets. When we come back, our final segment, we're going to talk to Mr. Anderson about some of the projected streets that will be done with Measure L. So join us when we come back here on Thursday night version of Ridgecrest Talk.
And welcome back to our final segment of Thursday evening edition of Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Robert Eierman. Co-host is Al Huey, and we're here with Mr. Andy Anderson. We're talking about Measure L, the Citizens Oversight Committee. And so I think you had a question for him, Al.
Well, I wanted to, if you could tell us the roads that are in the works. Nothing's been done yet, but the ones that are being projected for either the remainder of this year or the 14-15
Well, the ones
fiscal year.
the ones for the remainder of this year were the 7 streets
that you mentioned earlier.
that I mentioned earlier,
Okay.
yeah, that are going to be done in the fall of the paving season, which between now and November. In fact, I think some of these repairs have already started. Some of them haven't. Those are all streets that are in process for the rest of this year's paving season. And part of the confusion with this is that the monies overlap. The city's fiscal and the state's fiscal year ends on June 30th.
Right.
Well, the paving season runs from May to November.
Right.
So you have monies that overlap from one year to the next. It's very confusing to try to keep track of that. Measure L committee, in my estimation, has done a wonderful job keeping track of that money.
With the current budget, the way it's put out,
right,
yes, it is very confusing.
Because that's not the only money that we have for street repairs. The gas tax fund money comes in, but that's, gosh, there's so many little subgroups in the gas tax money. There's the Safe Routes to School portion of it. Gas tax money comes in and it has to go first and foremost, it must go to public transportation. After you've filled all the public transportation needs, then you can do Americans for Disability Act stuff with the money.
The curbs.
And the gutters and sidewalks and all of that stuff for ADA compliance. Okay, after that, then the money that's left in the tax fund money that's left can go into the streets fund.
The gas tax.
Gas tax money goes into the streets fund. But you have to fulfill all of these other requirements before you can spend a dime in gas tax money. So trying to keep track of where all that money goes is extremely difficult. And I give the Measure L committee a pat on the back. Not necessarily me, because I didn't do a lot of it.
That was Phil Salvatore.
Phil Salvatore was the lead on that, and
I think Michael Peterson did.
Michael Peterson, and he did great strides in straightening that out and pulling the figures out of the CAFR and making them match. And in some cases, we never did get them to match. And the explanation for that is, well, there's still funding issues on the end of a construction project, and they can't give you the final figures until sometimes a year or a year and a half later, when all of the bills are paid, and then they can say, okay, this is the final number. But it still doesn't make them match at the end of fiscal year when the CAFR's put out.
So do you have any list of roads, streets that are...
I do have some design projects.
Okay.
Ah, yes.
Okay, Channel Lake Boulevard overlay from Bowman Road to College Heights. That was awarded to Wyndham for design and construction management. That one may already be started. Notice to proceed was issued on August 1st. Down street construction up John Avenue to West Ridgecrest Boulevard is 95% design complete. Traffic signal synchronization between Ridgecrest Boulevard and College Heights. We requested an authorization, or the city requested an authorization. The request for authorization is at Caltrans headquarters in Sacramento for construction. Traffic signal at Bowman Road and Channel Lake Boulevard. So 85% of that design is complete. And some of these things designs were paid for partially by Measure L money. Drummond Avenue widening between In-Use Street and Down Street. Right-of-way and environmental, we still have those things to overcome, but it's 85% of that is design complete. 7 traffic signal upgrades. Request for proposal for construction management due on the 25th of August at 5 p.m. I'm not sure whether they got, I'm sure they got that deadline, but I didn't get the word on that.
It just says 7 traffic signals? It doesn't tell you which ones?
My list doesn't tell me which ones. I really don't know which ones it is.
So again, to interrupt you, traffic signals may not be what we like to see, you know, when we have rotten roads, but that's still going to streets, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Well, yeah, and I'm not sure what the funding was for that traffic signal upgrade request.
Right. Okay.
Which just a request for a proposal for construction. And it may be synchronization of the traffic signals that are being put in on Ridgecrest Boulevard. I really don't know.
Let me stop you there, because I certainly want to get in some information so that the citizens can address the council. Measure L committee is not really in a position, nor are they chartered to do anything except report what Measure L was used for. It certainly is going to be up to the city council themselves to put all of this into a understandable format so that the citizens can make an honest assessment of whether Measure L has been worth the increase in our taxes or whether it hasn't. Certainly I think a lot of people think that it has been, but the perception is also out there that it hasn't been, and that's up to the city council to fix that problem. The problem is perception, not reality, but perception has a big influence on how people vote.
Right.
So I really hope that the city council gets going with this so that we get it in place before it's too late.
Okay, well that wraps our show up for this evening. I want to thank you, Andy, for being on with us this evening. We're going to have you back, okay?
Okay.
And be with us here next week, 6 o'clock, where we'll begin our first candidate forum, the mayoral candidate forum. And we'll look forward to seeing you here with us. We're not looking forward to the candidate forum, but we'll be here.
We'll be here and we'll be doing it.
All right, folks. Have a good evening, and thanks for joining us.